Dear colleagues, dear friends and family of the ECPR, I have the honor and the pleasure to welcome you formally and officially to the 14th General Conference of the ECPR. This General Conference is a very special one that we will certainly never forget, simply because of the fact that we will never forget the year 2020. It has been, and it will continue to be, a year full of surprises, full of changes, of the need to adapt, to rethink, to reorient, to reinvent. It's a year in which our lives have been shaken. Our personal life and our academic life has been put upside down, and the consequences of all these changes will be felt for a long time. And yet here we are, sitting together in front of our screens for the plenary session of the very first virtual General Conference. There is a little tradition initiated by the former chair Rudy Anderweg of starting the welcome speech in the language of the local hosts. I had been practicing my German for a while, but today I will not need it. That is, on the one hand, good news. It means that the German speakers among you will not have to suffer listening to me torturing their language. Yet it's also a bit sad, because we did have local hosts at the University of Innsbruck who were eager to bring the General Conference to Austria. We are and remain grateful for their offer, and we have agreed that we'll have another try next year in 2021. Whether that will be a fully physical face-to-face General Conference is today's anybody's guess. I must, however, tell you that we had already started a reflection on the way in which we organize our conferences. That reflection was triggered not by the more recent concerns about COVID-19, but by concerns about the impact on climate of flying thousands of people into one place to allow them to interact. The plan was certainly not to go fully digital. That is the result of COVID-19, but to start exploring which meetings, at which exchanges might also be organized in a different way without necessarily bringing everybody live together. Circumstances beyond our will have forced us to go very far and to go very fast. And this year's General Conference is therefore a gigantic tryout, an attempt to make it an interesting and fruitful meeting for all of you by building on the existing structure of sections, panels, roundtables, and plenary meetings. Earlier this year, we already had to do the same for the joint sessions of workshops in April, and a few weeks ago, we offered the Summer Method School, fully online. There were also several conferences and Summer School of Standing groups that were organized online. I would like to seize this opportunity to express my immense gratitude to our staff, because they have made all this possible. They have made sure that the ECPR could keep on going, and they had to do so in difficult circumstances. Harbour House, our headquarters in Colchester, was closed, and everybody had to work from home. Yet ECPR itself was not closed at all. To the contrary. The amount of work that has been done, the degree of creativity that was displayed, the level of commitment that was activated have been tremendous. Rather than just cancelling or postponing, we have been able to keep as much of our offer, as much of our membership benefits available as possible for all of you. I cannot mention all the names, but I would like to mention the director of ECPR, Tanya Monroe, Mark Kench, who leads the so crucial IT department, and Nirusha Vigi, who leads the events team. I do not know what we would have done without you. In the name of the whole ECPR community, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if during this General Conference or at a later occasion, you come across one of the members of our staff, they are always all there somewhere in the background, make sure to give them a big, big virtual hug. The way in which our lives have been affected by the COVID-19 crisis is quite dramatic. I do not have to tell you that. The sudden collapse or de-differentiation of different spheres of life that used to have their own and specific time own definition of roles, types of contact, rituals and habits have been collapsed into basically one single private sphere. And that has been very hard on each of these roles. Inequalities have been laid bare and have been exacerbated. Policy choices have been made, especially restrictions on moving and on real social contacts that had not been seen before, at least not by our generations. Heated discussions were started on legitimacy, on the rule of law, on guilt and responsibility, on the level of risks with which one is prepared to live, on the very vulnerability of mankind, on the hierarchy between jobs and occupations, on what are the crucial and essential activities that cannot be put on hold, and why most of these are so lowly paid, on the role and legitimacy of scientific knowledge, on the competition between states, between sub-states, between cities even. In a somewhat cynical way, because these have been difficult and hard times for many of us, what has happened with our societies is also tremendously interesting and of utmost importance for political scientists. This is about politics and power, about policy making, about trust, about the boundaries between the private and the public. And while the medical science was the most visible, political scientists have certainly not stopped thinking. That was revealed quite clearly when we decided to reopen in May the call for panels and papers for this general conference, inviting contributions that looked at the COVID-19 crisis from a political science perspective. It resulted in more than 50 additional paper proposals. And the program of the general conference now does reflect the fact that we, as political scientists, are keeping our eyes open and are willing to understand and to explain what happens to politics and society. If we have today this nice and varied program for the general conference, that is because of you, because of your input, of your proposals for sections, for panels, for papers. And as always, all the standing groups have been very active and have left their mark on the program. But if we are here together this week with the opportunity to attend this wide variety of panels and topical roundtables, that is because one person has done a terrific job. That person is Hanna Kubatova. In the executive committee, she is one of the people responsible for the events. And for this event, she has been the main academic convener. The academic program is, to a large extent, her work. Hanna, I know that you are somewhere there in the crowd. You deserve a big round of applause. There are more than 2,000 of you who participate in this general conference. That is more than at our last physical general conference. It shows that keeping on going was the right decision, and I very much appreciate your massive positive response to that. Before I move on, I have a request for all of you. At the end of all our events, we send out a questionnaire to the participants, asking them to give us feedback. Most of you never respond to that invitation. We read this as a sign of satisfaction on your side, and that is, of course, quite fine. Yet for this year's general conference, I would like to insist. I would like you to respond. This is for all of us a new format, and we are very eager to know how you think about it. Your feedback is extremely important. Do take 5 minutes of your time to respond when you receive the post-event evaluation questionnaire. The plenary session of the General Conference is always the place for awarding some prizes. Prize winners are invited to the conference and are invited on stage to receive their prize. We will, of course, not do it that way this year. There are actually also prizes that should have been awarded at the plenary meeting of the joint sessions and of the method school. If you want to see all the details of each of the prizes, you can go to the website and read it all there. All the winners of the prizes have received a physical proof, a plaquette of their prize. Prizes, I will list them for you, have been given this year to the following colleagues. The Jean Blondel PhD Prize, awarded annually for the best thesis in politics, went to Femke Bakker, University of Leiden, for her thesis Hawks and Doves, Democratic Peace Theory Revisited. The Rudolf Wildenmann Prize, given to the best paper presented by a young scholar at the joint sessions, has gone to Tobias Widmann of the European University Institute for his paper How Emotional Are Populists Really? Factors Determining Explicitly Emotional Appeals in Political Communication, a paper presented at the 2019 joint sessions of workshops in Mons. The Jackie Briggs EPS Prize is awarded annually for the best article appearing in the previous year's volume of ECPR's professional journal European Political Science, EPS. It has been won by Stuart Brown of the London School of Economics for his article Britain's EU Referendum, How Did Political Science Rise to the Challenge? An assessment of online contributions during the campaign, article that appeared in volume 18, number 1 of the EPS. The Dirk Bergschlosser Award is conferred on a teaching assistant of the Method School who has demonstrated extraordinary dedication and pedagogical skills in helping students learn the material in their courses, along with a commitment to the ECPR Method School project. The prize winners in 2019 were Mario Munta and Dina Wozap. The Cora Maas Award is presented for the best evaluated course at the ECPR Winter or Summer School in Methods and Techniques. It has been won this year by Patrick Jackson. He joined the Method School in 2012, where he has taught the highly appreciated course on the philosophy of science. The annual Stein-Rocken Prize for Comparative Social Science Research is presented by the International Science Council, the University of Bergen and the ECPR. It is awarded to a book that is a substantial and original contribution to comparative social science research. This year's Stein-Rocken Prize has been awarded to Jeffrey Quirot of the LSE and Andrew Walter, University of Melbourne, for their book The Wealth Effect: How the Great Expectations of the Middle Class Have Changed the Politics of Banking Crisis, published by Cambridge University Press in 2019. The Matei Dogan Foundation Prize, given every second year, is for a scholar who has made a major contribution to political sociology. The 2020 prize has been won by Niilo Kauppi in recognition of his great contribution to the development of political sociology over more than 3 decades. The Hadley Bull Prize in International Relations is awarded annually for a book which makes a substantial and original contribution to theory and/or empirical studies in any field of international relations. The 2020 prize winner is George Lawson from Australian National University for his book Anatomies of Revolution. Congratulations to all these prize winners. And then there is one final prize that belongs to a different category. That is the ECPR Lifetime Achievement Award. For that prize, we have done something special. We have organized a small video meeting that has been recorded and that we can now all watch. The ECPR Lifetime Achievement Award is a very special prize. It is presented on a biennial basis to a scholar who has made an outstanding contribution to European political science. And with the Lifetime Achievement Award, the ECPR wants to celebrate and to honor scholars who have left a mark on the discipline and who are a crucial reference for their colleagues. The prize was awarded for the first time in 2005 and then went to Giovanni Sartori. And after him, the ECPR has given the prize to Philippe Schmitter, Gerard Leenbroek, Hans-Dieter Klingemann, Ian Budge, Rod Rhodes, and Joni Lovenduski. Joni Lovenduski was in 2017, and the next prize was therefore planned for 2019. We have, however, decided to skip 1 year and make the next Lifetime Achievement Award coincide with the 50th anniversary of the ECPR in 2020, and that is now. For this prize, there were 11 nominations, and they were evaluated by the jury, composed of Tanya Munro, director of ECPR, and executive committee members Reuven Hazan, David Farrell, Anna Stroka, and myself as chair of the jury. And we have unanimously decided to give the 2020 ECPR Lifetime Achievement Award to David Miller. David Miller is Professor of Political Theory at the University of Oxford, Senior Research Fellow at Nuffield College, Oxford, and he's also a visiting Professor of Law and Philosophy at Queen's University, Kingston, Ontario. He has been a Fellow of the British Academy since 2002. He puts forward rich political theory, which has inspired generations of students, researchers, and scholars, as well as the public at large. David Miller was nominated for the prize by a group of 26 colleagues, some of whom also did so in the name of other associations and standing groups of the ECPR. Among those who took the lead in this nomination team is Avner de Shalit from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and I gladly leave it to him to explain more at length why they believe that David Miller deserves this prestigious prize. Avner, over to you.
Thank you. So I would like to start with a very short anecdote, which is telling about David's approach to teaching and doing research. So this was 3 weeks after I had started being supervised by David. And I came to the meeting, and David started the meeting by asking, "So, have you been to the theater and the opera?" And I wanted to impress him, and I said, "No, of course not. I have to study. I can't afford going to the theater and the opera." And he said, "This is wrong. If you really want to grasp society and politics, if you really want to understand society and politics, you must not be detached from real life, including the arts." I was so impressed that I've been saying this to all my PhD students since then. I think this is telling not only because this is a very holistic approach to supervising, but also because it relates to and reflects the way David does research. So one of the most distinctive characteristics of David Miller's work is his use of empirical evidence to inform debates in political philosophy. We must not think about justice or the way we should treat immigrants and refugees without really being intimately close to what is going on in society. Individuals, he says, stand in different relationships to one another, and they start making sense of what the demands of justice, the moral demands of justice or of any policy are, by looking first at the particular nature of the relevant relationships. This is why I think this anecdote is really revealing, because it shows how David thinks in a very holistic way about political philosophy and how he served as a bridge between normative political philosophy or normative political theory and political science.
Thank you in particular to the ECPR and to the selection committee for giving me this award. I'm absolutely delighted to be honoured in this way, and I really feel that I don't deserve it. I feel that almost that to single out anybody in this field for an award of this kind is going to be a bit arbitrary, because we all work collaboratively, either directly or through reading and writing on the basis of each other's work. And so to pick one person out must seem a bit random. I also think I've been particularly lucky in my career. I was given at an early point a job that allowed me ample time to conduct research, and also gave me the opportunity to work with excellent research students like Avner and others, and with postdocs. And this has been a constant source of stimulation and criticism and so on. It's helped me immensely. So I feel that I don't really deserve this, but I'm delighted nonetheless to have it. And I think there are two other reasons why I'm particularly pleased that the award has come my way at this time. One is that at a time when obviously relationships between the UK and the rest of Europe are under some kind of stress, I think it's very good that we've consolidated our relationship by acknowledging the interdependence between us. And I hope that institutions like the ECPR are going to continue to support collaborative work between countries of continental Europe and the UK in the years ahead. And I hope this award sort of symbolises that willingness to cooperate. I'm also pleased, as Avner has mentioned, because political theory is sometimes, I think, regarded as an oddity within the general field of political science. Some people are not quite sure what it's doing there. But I hold this view that it's the relationship between normative theory and empirical social science is a very close one, that they feed off each other, that political theory plays a key role in setting the agenda for political science, and on the other hand, it learns from it by the evidence that's produced. So insofar as this award just reinforces the position of theory within the broader field, again, I'm very pleased that it's been given. So thank you both, and I'm delighted.
As you have just heard, and of course already knew, the ECPR is celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2020. It is truly a year that will not easily be forgotten. We had, of course, preferred to celebrate the anniversary under somewhat more pleasant or normal circumstances. But that does not mean that the 50 years of ECPR will pass unnoticed, quite to the contrary. The half century that lays behind us and that saw the arrival and development of the ECPR is very important for all of us. So let's look back a little bit. In May 1970, after almost 1 year of discussions and preliminary talks on the initiative of mainly Jean Blondel, then of Essex University, and Stein Rokkan from Bergen University in Norway, who were actually to become the first director and the first chair of the ECPR, a letter was sent to the Ford Foundation in New York to ask its support for a new organization that was meant to give a boost to political science in Europe. That letter, quite interestingly, went as follows. Gentlemen of the Ford Foundation, we the representatives of 8 scholarly institutions in France, the German Federal Republic, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and the United Kingdom, hereby submit for your consideration a proposal for the establishment of a European Consortium for Political Research and an application for a contribution to the cost of a 5-year program of activities under this body. We have discussed all points in the proposal drawn up by Professors Blondel and Rokkan in considerable detail, most recently at a consultative meeting at the headquarters of your foundation, and we have reached consensus on all the essentials. We are convinced that a consortium operated along the lines proposed would contribute decisively to the Europeanization of our discipline. The summer school, the research workshops, and the other activities outlined in the document would not only help to enhance the level of technical expertise and methodological sophistication, but would also offer opportunities for the linking of initiatives and projects across many centers for the establishment of effective networks of communication across historically distinct communities and scholars. We are strongly committed to this cause and will do our utmost to marshal the intellectual and material resources of our institutions in support of the consortium and for the activities proposed in the 5-year program. And that letter was signed by Jean Blondel, Essex, Stein Rokkan, Bergen, Hans Daalder, Leiden, Norman Chester, Oxford, Serge Hurtig, Paris, Richard Rose, Strathclyde, Jorgen Westerstahl, Gothenburg, and Rudolf Wildenmann, Mannheim. In August 1970, that is exactly 50 years ago, the positive answer of the Ford Foundation arrived and the ECPR was born. It has lived for somewhat longer than the 5 years for which the founders had been making plans. 50 years later, the same ECPR is still there and is still committed to the same goal, which is, like we call it today, advancing political science by bringing scholars from different institutions, different countries, different background and different subdisciplines together to exchange ideas, present results of their research, build network, set up collective projects, receive training, and publish their work. If you want, you can have a look at the timeline of the ECPR website. If you want, you can have a look at the timeline on the ECPR website. That gives you a nice overview of all the major steps that were taken since 1970. While the basic goal and purpose of the ECPR has not changed, many things did change, and hopefully for the better. You will have noticed that the letter of the founders was sent to the gentlemen of the Ford Foundation, and that all 8 founders were men. It took a while before female scholars entered the decision-making bodies of the ECPR. Today, we are very much aware of the gender gap, both in the discipline and in our organization. We carefully monitor the gender balance in all our activities, events, and publications, and we have an action plan with clear targets that allows us to gradually close the gap. We are certainly not there yet. Just think of the list of prize winners that I gave you earlier on. And while we do keep an eye on the gender balance and identify the areas where more action is needed, we become increasingly aware of the fact that gender is only one of the several dimensions on which our discipline, and hence also the ECPR, fails to be a truly diverse community. That is a major challenge for the years ahead of us. When in 1970, the founding fathers referred to Europe as the area where political science deserved an ECPR to bring it to a higher level, they actually referred very much to the northwest of Europe. Political science, so they believed, could only live and prosper in democratic regimes. And in 1970, that meant the exclusion of East and Central Europe and of countries like Spain, Portugal, and Greece. The early ECPR was relatively small because its geographical definition was also limited. In later years, the ECPR has grown geographically to the south of Europe, to the east, and also to non-European countries and political science institutions. That geographical diversity might not be perfect, and the original geographical core is to a certain extent sometimes still visible, but the ECPR has undoubtedly become a broader house than it used to be. ECPR is growing and is still growing today. The small organization of 1970 has developed into one with close to 350 membership institutions, a string of events throughout the year, like the winter school, the joint sessions of workshops, the summer school, the general conference. There are almost 60 standing groups and research networks that bring scholars together around specific topics or subdisciplines, and that also organize their own summer and winter school, and some of them really big standing group conferences. The ECPR started with one journal, the European Journal of Political Research, and publishes now also a political data yearbook, the European Political Science Review, European Political Science, and the brand new open access journal PRX, or Political Research Exchange. And the Standing Group on International Relations has set up the European Journal of International Relations, a leading journal in that field. The ECPR also publishes books in collaboration with Oxford University Press, and it has its own ECPR Press. On the occasion of the 50th anniversary, we have asked the editors of the journals to reflect on their journal's history and development, and to select a number of articles they felt were most representative of its output today. That collection of articles has been brought together in a virtual special issue. You can check it out on the website. All articles of the special issue are available to read without subscription throughout the anniversary year. And the ECPR does not stop here. There is still more to come. A new event that offers training for advanced PhD students, the Futures Lab, will be launched in 2021. It was actually planned for this year, but was postponed for obvious reasons. And a few weeks from now, the ECPR blog, The Loop, will go live. You are already invited, of course, to submit your ideas and to become an eager reader of The Loop. And if you want to know more about blogging in political science and about The Loop, you can join the roundtable this week on Wednesday during lunchtime. And then there is the Anniversary Fund. Today, there are still a number of political scientists who find it difficult, for a range of different reasons, to participate in ECPR activities and events, despite the original goal of the ECPR to enable all political scientists in Europe to benefit from the advantages resulting from the existence of the consortium. With this in mind, the Executive Committee has decided to set up a 50th Anniversary Fund, dedicated especially to supporting political scientists facing difficulties joining our activities and events, whatever the reason, economic, political, social, or other. The fund has been set up with an initial donation from the ECPR of £10,000, and all members of the ECPR community, and I would say especially those from richer or more advantaged countries, or those in a more privileged situation, are invited to contribute to help it grow and increase the range of disbursement. The fund is actually today already helping scholars. Donations can be made online on the ECPR website. One other initiative that was taken on the occasion of the 50th anniversary is a book. Political Science in Europe, Achievements, Challenges, Prospects is the title of the collection that was brought together by the editors Thibaut Boncourt, Isabelle Engeli, and Diego Garcia. They have done a fantastic job and produced a marvelous book that reflects on the origins and development of European political science and provides a critical assessment of the achievements and challenges lying ahead. It contains contributions that discuss to what extent there is a specific European political science, the long-term trends towards increasing internationalization, the profession and the extent to which it reflects the diversities of this international community, the relevance of political science, the relation between political science and policymakers, the evolution and the role of organizations like the ECPR, the dangers facing our discipline in a world where political science and other social sciences are too often at risk of being silenced by those in power. It's a must-read for all those who belong to the political science community, and good news, you can buy the book from ECPR Press at a 60% reduction. And last but not least, we have produced a little movie. We have invited several colleagues to talk about ECPR, about their ECPR, about what it was, what it is, and what it might or should become in the future. Among those who have contributed to the movie are two of the founders of the ECPR. Jean Plondel celebrated his 90th birthday last December, and we have invited him to Harbour House in Colchester for a little symposium in his honor. And on that occasion, he was interviewed and we unveiled his commemorative frame that will be displayed in Harbour House together with those of the other founders of the organization. Richard Rose, also a founder, came to Colchester and was asked to look back at what happened 50 years ago. And then you will see other people, editors of our journals, colleagues who are active in the standing groups, and one of the former chairs, Simona Piattoni. Before we launch the movie, I want to thank especially our communications manager, Rebecca Gethen, who has done most of the work for it. And I want to wish you all a very interesting, fruitful, challenging, and also very festive General Conference. Happy anniversary to you all.
There was a need for some political science, European, let's call it association or organization, enabling people from the various countries of Western Europe who are specializing in political science to know each other, and only with an organization of this kind would there be such a knowledge of these people. The idea was that what was important was to have meetings which were more than just A, to saying something and B, responding. That it was much more of a sort of genuine collaboration among people. And in order to achieve this, it seemed to be absolutely necessary, and American experience seemed to show this, was to have meetings which lasted for fairly long periods, like several hours during the day, and during which people would exchange their habits, their tradition, and maybe have problems, maybe disagree with each other, so that there was some kind of family.
In many ways, I think ECPR, there's a psychological attachment that I detect amongst all the people I've met over the years about ECPR. ECPR is their home. Yeah. It's their friend. It's where everybody comes to.
ECPR is special for me in one respect, that it allows people who attend its events to really connect. There is more time at ECPR events to really create communities. It becomes more of a family than just a set of events.
It's my family. It's my academic family. It's the conferences, it's the journals, it's all the other activities. And I've grown up with ECPR since the very beginning of my career.
Then, as you got organized, several things happened. First of all, the great breakthrough was Rudolf Wildermann in the joint workshops.
I think by introducing the joint sessions, having it at the first conference, the ECPR really set the stage.
Without ECPR, I wouldn't have the network that I have. And I think back to the first full-fledged workshop I went to, which was a workshop in Limerick with the Katz and Mayer political parties group. I met the people who became my network for the rest of my career. I'm still collaborating with people I met at that workshop today.
The ECPR has created a profession, and it provides multiple resources to network people on scales and with priorities as they emerge.
It's not just a superficial organization. It's about building talent, building scholarship through the generations and across borders.
Once we got by the late 70s, we knew it was a success, and when the foreign money stopped, we knew we were the object was to become self-sustaining.
So the ECPR, as a publisher of journals, has become increasingly important. It used to be just the European Journal of Political Research. That has grown in stature and has become a leading world journal.
I think it's incredibly important to have a wide stable of journals for professional associations such as the ECPR, because it reaches out to a range of colleagues across the discipline.
The most important thing that has happened to ECPR is that it has grown. I mean, it started as a very small organization, a few institutions, a few activities. And if you look at what it is now, 50 years later, it has become such a big organization with such a variety of events, of possibilities for training, for publication. All scholars in political science in Europe and outside of Europe are in one way or another constantly involved in things that are being organized or have been initiated by ECPR.
I experienced the period when after the 2004-2007 enlargement, and there was this enormous inflow of people from the East. It was really a pleasure to see this inflow of new people, particularly students and also colleagues.
I think with ECPR is an ideal place where people from the European South and European East meet with the West.
Personally, for me, ECPR is very important. I mean, I'm European, I work in Canada, but my main research is based on Europe. So this really allows me to keep a network, to build a network in Europe, to be active in Europe, and to bridge like my working place with the place I do research.
When I first started in the executive committee, we were monitoring the attendance of female students and scholars in all the events. And there was already this sense, was not necessarily affirmative action, but there was an attention.
There is not only gender. We know there is also other kind of scholars, other types of scholars who also suffered from barriers to enter into the family of ECPR, into the profession in general. And here I'm thinking about minority scholars coming from some part of Eastern Europe, scholars in all sorts of vulnerable possessions. And I think the ECPR there too can really learn for all what we have done toward gender equality to now move to a much more inclusive way of interacting.
There are close to 60 standing groups and research networks right now, which means that basically every sub-discipline or smaller subject is organized as a standing group within ECPR.
I believe the standing groups are the air in the lungs of the ECPR. So you need both. You need the lungs, the infrastructure, which enables the breathing, but you need the air. And this air, this life in the ECPR, it's the standing groups. It's where people come together, where they share interests, where they share information, where they plan and do activities.
This standing group was really, for me, he has changed my life in the sense that, of course, he was a lot of great research on gender and politics, and then we added later on research on sexuality, but it was also like a platform to innovate.
I think we're in the middle of a revolution there, and that 10 years from now, this whole business and world and practice and procedures of publications will be completely different.
So somehow it's always the case with big changes is that there is a lot of opportunities, but there is also quite a few challenges that I think we need to pay a lot of attention to in order to make sure that this move towards a broader sharing of knowledge does not exclude a group of scholars and a range of fantastic research that could not get funded via the usual research schemes.
The challenge is also how do we bring people together and connect with each other without actually physically being face to face.
It's very important, particularly in political science, because politics is very much a subject of people who talk to each other, and because of talking to each other, they may or may not like each other. And it seemed very important that people who are specializing on this should speak to each other as to realize that whether in other parts of the country or in a different country, the views or the approaches or the aspects of the problem were somewhat different.
We study political science, but we also live in the times when democracy is decaying worldwide, and academic freedoms are one of the first victims of the autocratic tendencies of illiberal populists. And so we are at the same time kind of studying ourselves. I think this is the most important thing for people, for scholars facing perils, is to give them this hope that you still belong, we still count with you, you are part of our community.
If I may not just make a forecast, but express a wish, it would be for the ECPR to achieve something which I think it has not achieved yet completely, at least. That is to make political science really crucial also for governments, to make it into a science that is listened to, that is consulted. And so that is my wish for the ECPR 10 years down the line, to make political scientists much more relevant in public debates, in in helping governments become and stay more democratic.